Welcome to our ocean studio. Here it is twilight in the U.S. Virgin Islands, and we're about to embark on Coming Home, episode 11. And it has been, I think, better part of 2 weeks since we've had the opportunity to share with you from this studio. It's been a little breezy as the trade winds pick up here in the U.S. Virgin Islands, and so it's been a while since we've been able to fire everything up, turn on the lights, and share more insights into Dode's songs. So, as we return this on episode 11 of Coming Home, the story of Dode's Mizmor, we are reminded that by exacting retribution on those who have been harmed, or against those who have harmed his people, I should say, Yahweh's actually being fair. He's being just. He's being correct. He's being compassionate. It's one of the lessons that God knows that we humans have a tough time learning. There's this sense that we should forgive and we should tolerate uh, religions and political doctrines, conspiratorial theories that have a propensity to encourage people to act badly, such as Islam has for so long encouraged rape and human trafficking, the slave trade, mass murder, and these sorts of things. And therefore, it is actually immoral. And it isn't the least bit compassionate to tolerate or to encourage those doctrines which encourage abuse of God's people. And so God's setting the example for us here, and he's telling us that beyond even holding those who have perpetrated hateful crimes against his people accountable, there's also the matter of closure for the souls who were abused. They deserve justice. They deserve to know that those who abuse them are being punished and held accountable for their crimes. Now, since we know this, so did Dode. And because we're Torah observant, he was able to determine this propensity of our God to be just and moral, just as we are. And it is the place through which we must all walk if our ambition is to know God. Dode as one Ra'ah, Nabi, and Zeroah to another said this. He made known, Yada. He revealed, acknowledged, and made us aware such that we could become familiar with, disclosing so as to encourage understanding his ways to Moshe. And this is the one who draws out through his interactions, his actions and deeds, his practices and achievements, his effectiveness and engagements with the children of Yisrael, La Bene Yisrael. This is Mizmor, lyrics to be sung, Psalm 103:7. And obviously, this is a continuation of program 10 on Coming Home, where we began to review the first 6 statements of 103:7. And what's important here is that almost everything that Dode had available to him to know God, to develop a relationship with God, to have his heart such that it was in sync with Yahweh's, for his mind to perceive what it was that God wanted him to accomplish, for him even to properly write many of his Mizmor, is the Torah. That's one of the things that makes his 119th Mizmor, which goes through each of the 22 letters that comprise the Hebrew alphabet, arranged in alphabetical order. He authored 8 stanzas to each letter, going through all 22 letters to tell us how to properly observe the Torah. And of course, it's brilliant. And that was his only written communication with God. He also wrote the 19th Mizmor, which states that the Torah is entirely complete and perfect, and that it is responsible for restoring the souls of those who are open-minded. And so it is this recognition that the only thing Dode had, excuse me, apart from the Torah, to teach him about the relationship with YAHOWAH that God intended, was the communications he had directly from him that would have been the source for his mizmor and his mashal, as well as what YAHOWAH said to him through Nathan, for example. So we're actually in a vastly superior place than was our king, the Messiah and prophet Dode, when it comes to knowing what God wants, when it comes to knowing how to participate in the covenant, when it comes to knowing how to capitalize on the Moed Mikre, when it comes to knowing where we are in God's timeline. We're far better off because we not only have the Torah, we have all of the writings, we have Dode's Mizmor, we have his Mashal, we have the great prophets like Yashayah and Yirmiah and Hosea, Zechariah, Malachi, and on it goes, so that we are in a vastly superior place. And we also have the advantage that we've been able to see so many of the prophecies fulfilled, and we're even able to understand the creation account and um, recognize that it is precisely accurate in the order of events and time. Um, we also have the lessons that Dode learned and shared available to us. So it gives us the ability to put God's picture together from beginning to end in a way that was not possible back 3,000 years ago. So it is true that YAHOWAH made known his ways to Moshe. Now, this being the case, um, it means that the way to God is through the Torah. Moshe scribed the Torah. He's the voice of the Torah and Devarim. He's the one who lived the Torah and from everything from Shemoth names to Kara to be called out to Bob Midbar numbers. He's in the wilderness. The Torah was literally part of his life as he was trying to lead the children of Israel from ignorance to knowledge, from religious beliefs to understanding, from being slaves to being free, from Mitzrayim to the promised land. And it is those ways which are conveyed in the Torah, and the way of the Torah is to embrace the terms and conditions of the covenant and then capitalize on the benefits of the Moed Mikre, which at the time were explained to us, but it's actually David who would figure them out and fulfill them for us. So YAHOWAH made known, he acknowledged and he made us aware. He caused us to be familiar with his ways through Moshe, through his interactions, his actions, deeds, and practices. That's one of the real differences between Moshe and the rest of us, because with Moshe, as I say, most of the Torah, not Bamidbar. Bamidbar was, excuse me, Barashith, in the beginning, Genesis, was simply dictation. YAHOWAH dictated it, explained it, Moshe wrote it down. But from that point on, much of the Torah was experiential. The children of Israel lived it, and they witnessed the interactions with YAHOWAH. And that was a different experience. I still would value our opportunity today over that because there weren't a lot of speaking parts from YAHOWAH to the children of Israel. The fact that Barashith in the beginning was dictated to Moshe. Our ability to read it today is better than the children of Israel listening to it from Moshe's lips, because we have so many tools to look up and to make connections, and we can understand it through the perspective of time. For example, we now know that the story that was told in the garden is what God values most, and he's going to bring us back to the place we began through Sukkah. So I think that much of it has a greater experience. I mean, for us to be able to read about the events of the Exodus, uh, I think we have a better advantage there because the children of Israel were so irascible. They were so rebellious and mean, so religious that they didn't pay much attention. They certainly didn't understand what God was saying. And we're able to see through their bad example and understand what God values and what he disdains and what they missed along the way that we now can capitalize upon. So it is a little different for us, and I think vastly superior. I would much prefer to be living now than then. Now, that doesn't mean that every time has been better than the time of Moshe and the and his interactions with Yahweh during the Exodus. For example, from the time of Malachi in 447 BCE to the time that Yahweh uh, imbued his choder with his seven spirits, and we began to analyze the religions that had been so hostile to God's people, and then to proceed to analyze God's testimony and present it in amplified translations and share its intent, revealing insights that had been unheralded and every bit of 2,500 years. There was a real dark period in there where no one had any understanding of what God had conveyed or what he was offering. And so that would have been a very dark period to be in. And Yahweh tried to resolve that problem, but he couldn't find anybody through whom to communicate. Now, going back to Dode's case, 100% of what he knew about God from a written perspective came by reading the Torah. And he was augmented with the visions of prophecies that he shared with us, and insights through the Spirit, which he wrote down on for our benefit, as well as revelations that Yahweh conveyed, for example, through Shamuel and through Nathan. So this is Mizmor, Psalm 1073. Now, Moshe, whose character is as exemplary, really, as anyone's, and his intellect was sublime, was as close to being an ideal implement as was likely ever lived. Um, he wasn't perfect, however. Um, he had his moments. When the children of Israel rebelled, which was often, he very seldom bowed his back, bellowed out that, stop it. You're wrong. You know you're wrong. You're embarrassing yourself. You're embarrassing me. You're embarrassing your God. Now, shut up, sit down, stop complaining, and listen. Very seldom. Almost every time that he was approached by recalcitrant children, he ran to the tent of the restoring testimony and did a faceplant. So that probably wasn't the best of all circumstances. And one time, it just got to be too much for him. He was confronted with the children of Israel belly aching, and he told Yahweh he didn't want this job, that it was way too much for him to handle, and that he actually blamed Yahweh for the set of circumstances he was having to deal with. Now, he overcame it, and to his credit, but there are some moments where even Moshe is a little too human. But it's God's style. There are no perfect people to work through, so he does his best work using flawed implements. I represent that statement, as one would say. Now, for the most part, however, um, Moshe was a man of character. He showed his sublime character when he was living in the lap of luxury as a son, really, in Pharaoh's household, and yet when he saw one of Pharaoh's taskmasters abusing a Hebrew, he spared the life of the Hebrew, risking his own. And a man that has that kind of courage, a man that has that kind of character, is really exceptional. So, in that way, I absolutely admire him, and I'm actually glad, not for Yahowah, but for me, that Dode had his times of melting down and moments of exasperation, because if he didn't, then I he'd say, "Oh, come on, I can't do this. I can't live up to that kind of a standard. I mean, you want too much from me as well." And when you can see that even Dode had his less than stellar moments, and so did Moshe, then you say, "Okay, God, those are tough sandals to fill, but I'm willing to go where you want me to go, recognizing that the people that you've used in the past have flaws just like me." It should make us all more comfortable jumping in and being part of the solution and working with God. So I think for the most part, Moshe was a pleasure for Yahowah to work with, especially when liberating his people from human religious and political oppression. However, as this states, that Yahowah's interactions were with the children of Israel, and that's important because they were quite the opposite. And that means that God would rather achieve his purpose with the dunderheads than work alone, because, well, the children of Israel were dunderheads. And as such, there is a job for everyone. How do you think? How do you think I got this one? Without what Yahowah achieved and communicated through Moshe, Dode's lyrics, his three lives, and his sacrifices really are meaningless. The ghoulish spectacle in the fulfillment of Pesach by being mauled by the Romans and then nailed to a Roman cross, and then the trip into Sheol carrying our guilt, all of that would be absolutely without merit if it were not for what Yahowah has done with it. My lovely wife is trying to bring me a margarita to celebrate the beautiful evening here, and I thank her for it. It was Wookie's tail that you saw there. Um, Clearly, I do not work alone. I have wonderful support, and we have a wonderful life here. And so it is a great pleasure to be able to serve Yahowah and to have him really overtly show his appreciation. You can see from the lovely setting behind me that, here I am. It's what, 6:30, almost 7 o'clock here in the U.S. Virgin Islands. It's a light breeze, temperatures in the high 70s. We overlook the beauty of the sea, and it's a lovely place to be able to offer these insights into our God and to share what we have learned. Um, and so, yeah, well, I think is using even this as a metaphor. What he's trying to say is that if you join with him, if you become part of the covenant family and engage with him, that he will embrace you. And that no matter how much you try to give, Yahowah will provide more. That doesn't mean that life's always going to be easy. I mean, I still put in 12 to 14-hour days, 7 days a week, 90 hours a week at this. So it doesn't mean it's going to be easy. I mean, today was one of the most frustrating days I can recall in a long time. Pleasant on Facebook, miserable on X, as you just realize how incredibly difficult it is to communicate in the swamp of deception that has become that particular form of mass communication. But, then you come back out and you have this opportunity to talk to the covenant family, to speak on behalf of Yahweh, to share insights from Dod's Mizmor, to share knowledge that can be gleaned. And you can see there's a smile again. Even Wookie was wagging his tail, because it is a job where the rewards are infinitely beyond the sacrifices. But clearly in Dod's case, we have to be mindful that while much of his life was highly rewarding, he was also under a lot of stress. But God's reward for Dod's faithfulness and volunteering to fulfill the sacrifices at great personal pain of Pesach and Matzah leading to Bakurim is something that, well, is so extraordinary that Dod is the firstborn of Yahweh, his chosen one. And in this case, to be fair, Dod's sacrifice and fulfillment of the Torah and the Torah's proclamation and explanation of what he would achieve are synergistic. They're literally togetherness. They are promise and fulfillment, narrative and explanation. One did the talking, the other one did the walking. When Dod's nefesh is seen enabling the bereth by fulfilling the mikre, as portrayed by Moshe, nothing is more important or beneficial. And keep in mind, the most, I think, poignant moment in all of the Torah is Devarim 18, where Moshe foretells the arrival of Dod. And clearly, the standard by which Dod was Sadak, considered right and vindicated, and the path he followed are both found in the Torah of Moshe. And that is to say, God's directions are not found in either the Talmud or the New Testament. If you're looking for God's way, throw away the religious books and read what Yahweh inspired Moshe to teach the children of Israel. Now, Dod understood this connection because he was Torah observant. His 119th Mizmor, as I've shared with you, that psalm reveals how we should do as he had done, making it second only to the Torah itself of Moshe as the most important document ever written. That and the 89th Mizmor, which are the lyrics Yahweh wrote to direct our attention to the achievements of the Messiah and Son of God. Now, if you'd like to read what its author had to say, well, you'll find it in An Introduction to God. There, one of the many things that you'll discover is that the king of Israel correctly recognized that Yahweh engages and interacts with his people, with Israel. And even when he is not communicating through a Israelite, the message is for Israel. They are the chosen people. They are the descendants of Jacob. They are the natural born heirs to the covenant. They were liberated by Yahweh and given the promised land, and they will be reconciled with him once again. At least a remnant will be upon his return on Yom Kippurim. God's focus has been and will continue to be on his people, Israel, and that's never going to change. All you need to do is to look at what's said in Yirmiyah 31. When God restores his covenant, his one and only covenant, he tells you explicitly he's going to do it by affirming his relationship with Yahudim and Israel. He also tells you that while the affirmation of his covenant will be different in a way than was the experience that the children of Israel had with God's during the Exodus. That the difference is that during the Exodus, they were so irascible, so ignorant, so religious, God had to drag them out of Mitzrayim kicking and screaming. He says, I took you with a strong and firm, resolute hand. Or he usurped their free will. He just says, I don't really care if you want to have meltdowns. I don't care if you tell me that to shut up and go away. I don't care how many times you complain. My job is to get you out of slavery and Mitzrayim and fighting yourself the subjects of genocide to freedom in the promised land with the benefit of the Torah so that you can serve as my prophets and witnesses. And he did. But the difference is when the covenant is renewed with his people in between now really and 2033 on Yom Kippurim, which is the Day of Reconciliations, he is not going to spare the remnant of Israel with a firm hand. He's not going to usurp their free will. You're going to have to choose to come to Yahweh and embrace his name, accept the terms and conditions of the covenant by choice, and understand the purpose and attend and benefit from each of the Moed Mikra. So it is through the Torah and on behalf of his people that we find Yahweh. I still on X and other places are questioning, how do you know that Yahweh's name is pronounced Yahweh? Language has changed over time. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. It was written with 4 vowels. Yahweh explained the proper pronunciation of Yahweh in the verbal root of his name, which he told us was Haya. And in Haya, 3 of the 4 letters are properly conveyed in terms of their pronunciation. Just take the Yah, for example, and Yah and Hayah. As for the only letter that is excluded, we find this introduction to Yahweh's name in a book called the Torah. And it is probably the second most commonly uttered phrase between Jews and has been for 3,400 years. The only word that Jews say more often than Torah is shalom. Well, Torah and shalom have a letter in common, and in both cases, that letter is the Wah, and it is pronounced as an O. So, it is Yahweh, which is a proper transliteration of the name of Elohah, also from the Wah, God, guided by his Torah from the Wah and also the the Hey, instructions regarding his Haya, existence, and our Shalom, reconciliation. So Yahweh is compassionate, Rakum. He has strong feelings and he is enduring in his commitment to his adoration and his favor for his people. And he wants to provide a reprieve from judgment. And he is merciful, Wah Chanun. He is inclined to bestow favor and to provide unearned benefits along with generous blessings, being fortuitous, long-suffering also, and loyal, slow to anger. And this is from Arak off, unable to endure that which is, that's probably not for you, Wookie. Probably not good for you. Wookie, I think you need to get down, buddy, because if you were to hit that keyboard, you would end the show rather abruptly. So you be careful, pal. Yes. Oh, no, careful. Sit down. Sit down, Wookie. Wookie, come on. Come on, bud. Come on, Wookie. Come on. Come on. excuse me, Wookiees is famous for walking on keyboards, and if he walked on the keyboard of the laptop that is hidden beneath the camera, he would who knows what he would do to the live stream of this program. But anyway, here we are reading that Yahweh is telling us that that he is compassionate, that he is adoring of his people, that he is merciful, and that he is long suffering and loyal, slow to anger, and that he is abounding in love, overwhelmingly kind and steadfastly loyal. Warab Chasad, abundantly generous, offering tremendous assistance and rewards. Ms. Moore lyrics to sing Psalm 103:8. This is the Yahweh that I know. Um, I have had a fortuitous relationship with Yahweh in the sense that at no time has he ever done anything that would cause me concern. There's no point that he was overpowering. There's no point that he was fearsome. There's no point that he was demanding. Um, yes, he sets very high expectations, and he will derive from us as much as we're capable of giving. But the more we work, the more we contribute, the more we find that Yahweh provides benefits and rewards. He is exceedingly loving and steadfastly loyal to those who come to know him, appreciate him, agree to share what they have learned about him, and who are committed to working with him. This is back to this reality that no matter how much I try to contribute, and it's been a fair amount. It's now 24 years and over 100,000 hours. Um, well, I work and have worked 90-hour weeks for all of this time on behalf of Yahweh's mission. But no matter how much I give, um, Yahweh is overwhelmingly more generous. And I only share this because I want you to know that Yahweh is consistent. What Doe just said about him was true of his relationship with Yahweh. It's true of my relationship with Yahweh. He has referenced the instructions he learned and the insights he gleaned from Moshe and the Torah. It is Moshe's experience with Yahweh. It is Yashayah's experience with Yahweh. Everyone that has chosen to devote their lives to what Yahweh is requesting of us finds God exactly this way. And so it is a message to you. Accept the terms of the covenant. There are 5 of them. Recognize how they're delivered through the Moed Mikre, particularly with Dode's fulfillment of Pesach, Matzah, and Bakodim. And embrace Yahweh's name. Come to love his Son, our Messiah. Study his Torah and prophets. Share what you have learned. Contribute. You'll find God just the same. He is not going to lavish benefits causing you to win the lottery or live a pain-free life and find the perfect girlfriend or boyfriend or pass the next test or get a raise because you ask for it. Because he's not really interested in your prayers. And it's really only when what you want is what he wants that he will give you what you need, which should be what you want. You don't have to ask God to give you what he wants to provide. You just need to be in a position where what you're offering encourages God to provide what you need. So, this is the God that all of us who have come to know him, come to respect him, come to love him, have well enjoyed. As I said, my relationship with Yahweh is really very, very comfortable. It's I've just chosen, he has chosen to be very approachable, very kind, very um, uh, unbossy, if you will. He's the furthest from a Lord that you would have to fear. He's never once told me to obey him. He's never even had to tell me to listen to him because that's natural. He hasn't told me that. I mean, he will say on times, I want you to write this and focus on this, or share this and go from writing to speaking, or these kinds of things, and change the logo from a lion, for example, to this menorah. Um, he will convey things when I don't naturally pick up on them. Um, Most of what I learned from him, I find the same way that anyone could have determined it. Study his testimony, fall in love with his words, go where his words lead, make the connections needed to understand. Well, and to be completely honest, God would have to be this way to put up with the children of Israel and to put up with the likes of Moshe, Dode, and myself. We're flawed, but he doesn't see us that way. And it's a marvelous solution that he has when he had Dode carry all of our guilt and deposit it in Sheol, so that all Yahweh sees from us is our desire to serve. For him, it's all smiles. It's the best of all situations. And for most of the past 4,000 years, well, unfortunately, Yehudim have been on a prolonged timeout, and it's been for bad behavior. And I'm not sure they're any better off today, but yet God hasn't given up on them. He still wants to love them. If only they would get out of their own way and allow it. Stop erasing his name. Embrace it. Stop being religious and turn to the relationship. Stop trusting their IDF and their politicians and start relying on him. And that is why this statement, including Rakum, Chanun, and Chesed, along with the unique modification of Af, is so profoundly important. Yahweh is magnanimous, no matter how fast and furiously we strive to contribute. And boy, I've done my best. He always gives us more than we can possibly provide. It is the nature, his nature really, to celebrate what we do together, such that he moves heaven and earth for those he dearly loves. And he will do anything for us in return. I mean, this clearly is the best possible relationship. And it's important for everyone who loves Yahweh to recognize that this is his nature. You can't outgive God. No matter what you attempt to do, oh, he wants to do far more. Well, as you can see with my right hand, as I try to move the mouse and share with you more that is in this Mizmor, and I feel very comfortable, speaking extemporaneously about my relationship with Yahweh and what he wants you to know about him. But I'm not comfortable winging it when it comes to reading, correctly conveying um, his testimony as it's revealed and for example, in this Mizmor, the 103rd. For that, I want to actually see what I invested hours upon hours translating in an amplified format so that you might know and appreciate the fullness of God's communication to us. And at this point, the um, laptop that I'm using, it has frozen. So the way I'd like to end this program, since God has spoken so much about, or Dode has really spoken so much about Yahweh's nature at this point, is by answering two questions. One is, what are the terms and conditions of the covenant? And what are its benefits? Since this is the way to receive Yahweh's favor. And those terms begin with a prerequisite, if you will. Call it the thumb on amongst the five. And the prerequisite is that we have to walk away from religion and politics. We have to walk away and distance ourselves from Babel. Now, this is not about geography. This is about attitude, our thinking, and what matters to us. And what God is saying here, I don't want you to be affiliated with politics or with nationalism or with patriotism or any religion of any kind. Those are hard stops. If you are in any way overtly political or religious, God will not accept you into his company. He is not going to open heaven's door for you. It is the prerequisite, which until you have resolved, you can't take the next step. If you look at Abraham and Sarah, they had to leave Babel and were on their way to Haran when Yahweh introduced himself. If you look at Moshe, who Dode has mentioned, he had walked away from Mitzrayim. He had distanced himself from the religious politics of the country in which he was raised. And this is an essential prerequisite. It's religion or the covenant. You cannot have both. It's politics or relationship. It's reliance on God or nothing. So the second condition of the covenant is to walk to God and allow him to perfect us. Now, there's only one way, one walk to Yahweh, and that's through the Moed Mikre. And Yahweh is not telling us that we need to be perfect. He's telling us that he wants to perfect us. This is done during Matzah when Dode's Nefesh soul carried our guilt into Sheol to deposit it there, never to be seen again. And so we become perfect in God's eyes because our guilt is removed. So this means that we need to capitalize on the Moed Mikre, particularly the first three. Pesach, which opens the doorway to life, Matzah, which makes us perfect before God, and Bikurim, which enables us to be part of God's family. The next statement is really related to this, the next requirement, number 3, if you will. Number 3 is to trust and rely on Yahweh. We humans have had the propensity over the years to do just the opposite, to trust and rely on all manner of religion and our politics and our military and our country and oh my goodness, so many different things. And yeah, I was saying, no, no, no. If we're going to have a relationship, I want you to trust and rely me. Rely on me. I want to be your father. I want you to know that I will uplift you, that I will protect you, that I will care for you. But I'm not going to compete. You can't say I'm going to rely on the IDF and say I'm also going to rely on Yahweh. No, it doesn't matter that the IDF could do good work. But your reliance in terms of your life and liberty needs to be on Yahweh. The fourth condition, if we were to do it this way, so prerequisite, and the fourth now of those 5 conditions on your hand uh, would be that to be part of the covenant, we need to be observant. And in particular, we need to closely examine and carefully consider the terms and conditions of the covenant. We must come to know what God is offering, what he is expecting in return, before we can honestly capitalize upon it. So the fourth condition is to closely examine and carefully consider these terms and conditions of the covenant that I'm sharing with you so that you can respond to them appropriately. And the fifth condition is for parents. Uh, Yahweh is asking us as mothers and fathers to circumcise our sons on the eighth day so that they are prepared for the covenant. They're set apart unto God, and that we remember to raise them such that they will appreciate being part of the covenant. And if we're a man and our parents didn't do the right thing, then we need to be circumcised, because circumcision is the sign of the covenant. It sets us apart unto God. It is the way that we express our commitments, our signature, if you will, that we want to be part of God's family. And it is a requirement. All five of these are the requirements of the covenant. They are the terms and conditions to be part of God's home. And he's serious about them. In fact, he says that if you're not circumcised, then you can't participate in Passover. And that is because the worst thing you can do is to gain eternal life, but be separated from God. So circumcision is a requirement to go through that doorway to life, which then takes us across the threshold of matzah for our perfection, which then leads us into God's covenant family. Those are the five conditions. On the other hand, there are five benefits. So, what are the benefits? First, through that doorway of life of Pesach, we become immortal. Oh, immortality. Now, immortality can either be really good or really bad. All depends on where you spend it. And if you're immortal and not perfected through matzah, then there's only one place that you can be immortal, and that's at Sheol, the place of separation. So that's why God says, I don't want you to participate in Passover unless you're prepared to be a member of the covenant and can go all the way through this process, because that would be a really bad thing for you to be immortal and estranged from me. So the second benefit of the covenant is perfection, that God perfects us so that we can be part of his family. The third is inclusion in the family. That is delivered through Bikurim, where we follow the firstborn of Yahweh and become firstborn children of God's covenant family. The fourth benefit is that God enriches us. He has all of these wonderful things to give, uh, including this entire universe that we are going to inherit, and his home in the seventh dimension beyond this universe. So God wants to enrich us. He wants to enrich us with knowledge. He wants to enrich us with liberty and freedom. But he also wants, and that's the fifth benefit, he wants to empower us. And that's particularly wonderful because we are currently three-dimensional beings stuck in the ordinary flow of time, and we're going to be empowered through the entirety of the fourth dimension and be able to maneuver in time. And then through the fifth and the sixth dimension into the seventh dimension, where each of those passages along the way provide an infinite increase in our empowerment and capability. So, as part of the covenant, that fifth condition, we are enormously empowered and our capabilities are enhanced. And so, those are the five benefits for those who accept the five conditions of the covenant. And as we've just determined, those five benefits are delivered through Dod's fulfillment of Pesach, Matzah, and Bikurim. And for those who are in a position where they have accepted the terms and conditions of the covenant, and they capitalize upon what Dod accomplished in Pesach, Matzah, and Bikurim, then you are prepared for the upcoming Shavua harvest. And you will be enriched and empowered tenfold, even a double portion of a tenfold enrichment and empowerment uh, as you are transformed from a physical being stuck in time and raised up to Yahweh in Shamayim. It is a exceedingly marvelous thing that our God is offering for all of us. And so those are the terms and conditions of the covenant, the benefits of them, how we are to capitalize upon them, and it provides an ideal place for us to conclude this program. As you can see, it's no longer twilight here in the U.S. Virgin Islands. We're now surrounded by the darkness of what is a moonless night. Um, we are about a week away from the celebration of Pesach Matzah and Bakurim this year, so we'll soon start a series of shows on it. So I thank you for putting up with me here in our ocean studio. It's good to be back. Cheers to one and all. May Yahweh bless. Thank you for listening.